Okay, this is part 4 of The French Mind by Peter Watson, and this will be the conclusion of the book review. I'm mostly emphasizing the artist. Again, in summary, I think the book was kind of stupid. It emphasized all the gossip and adultery relationships of the famous French people, so I thought that was stupid. But I like the French artists, so I'll show you some of their paintings, especially from the 1800s. First painter here is Wm Bouguereau, and so here is Family from Antiquity, okay? And it's nice, but we got a lot more stuff than that coming up. Okay, this next painting is, I'm going to show you the Italian version of The Birth of Venus, from Greek mythology, and by Sandro Botticelli, 1485. He was a painter with the Medici. So the Medicis had all these scholars of Plato and Aristotle, the ancient Greeks, Marsilio Ficino, Pico della Mirandola. So they were very well educated and informed. The Medicis had funded a whole place for the study of Greeks. And it's just elegant and it's beautiful, okay, and it's reserved. Now I'm going to show you how the French painted. So first of all, here's a French from 1636, Nicolas Poussin, okay, and you can see there's a lot more scantily clad women, and it's sort of Baroque, in the 1600s it's Baroque, and it's just a lot more drama, emotion, and this is more of a French way of painting The Birth of Venus. Okay, now I got a couple more French ways. And okay, now here is Alexandre. Well, actually, this one's Wm Bouguereau. But even Wm Bouguereau, who's relatively on the conservative side of French painters, he's still very good at showing some drama and emotion. This is sort of a French thing. And even though it's 1879, you're in the Romanticism age, there's still a bit of this Baroque sexualization that you see in French art. Okay. And now I'm going to show you another version of it. And here's Alexandre Cabanel, okay? And again, the French woman is almost like someone you could imagine having her in your bed, okay? Versus, The Birth of Venus originally with Sandro Botticelli, it's just Greek art, spectacular, noble and all this. Whereas when the French painted, it's more like Foxy Babe, okay? And again, all the cherubims, the cupids. Okay, so anyways, this is Alexandre Cabanel, French painter from 1863, and I'm just showing you a contrast between how the French do stuff and how other cultures will do it. Now here is Ophelia, and this one is by Alexandre Cabanel, and again, it's sort of a foxy lady, and she's, just in the beginning phase of drowning. You have the sense that you could save her. Okay, now let me show you how the English paint this. So here is the painting of Ophelia by John Everett Millais. He was the leader of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood of Painters. And you can see it's a spectacular painting. Millais' painting is better. But this is just sad. This is the tragedy. Ophelia's already dead. You can't save her. And the nature is painted so perfectly, so realistic, it's just spectacular. Part of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood trying to go back to the naturalism and accurate realism of the Pre-Raphaelite painters before Raphael. And it's just spectacular. But again, it's this English seriousness, Protestant, versus French is sort of wild, fun Catholic. Okay, now here's a painting by Wm Bouguereau, and he's a great French painter from 1850. And this is Virgil, the great Roman author of the Aeneid, and Dante, the great Italian author of the Divine Comedy. Okay. And it's a rather scary painting, it's that old quote of Plautus, man is wolf to man. Okay. All right, but now I'm going to show you some more paintings by Wm Bouguereau, and he's a fantastic painter. He's a spectacular painter. And this is the Virgin of the Lilies, and, just how magnificent the face of the Christ child. And it's just beautiful, and you feel the emotions, and it's just beautiful. It's elegant, and it's wonderful, This is also why men love women so much, because we just look at them that way and we're like, wow, how could you not love that? Here is the Song of Angels with Madonna and Child. And again, you get a sense of it's heavenly, and it's sort of like, men, we exist to protect that, okay? That's what we love. We don't love 304s with tattoos twerking, okay? We think they're disgusting, all right? We love this, okay? This is what we'll give our life for that, okay? And it's just beautiful, all right? So Song of the Angels with Madonna and Child by Wm Bouguereau. And you could feel the emotion. You could feel the warmth. That's why I love Wm Bouguereau, because I'm going to show you Meissonier. Meissonier is the next French painter I'm going to show you. And he in his lifetime was more famous than Bouguereau. But Bouguereau, to me, is better because he more accurately portrays, conveys, and inspires emotion. Here's another Wm Bouguereau painting, Innocence. Okay, and again, it's just beautiful. It's all good. Okay, here's the Flagellation of Christ by Wm Bouguereau, and remember what Christ said. Remember, if the world hates you, they hated me first. Okay, by Wm Bouguereau, and again, you can see how the emotion's well communicated. Okay, now here's a Pietà, with Christ after he's brought down and Christ is dead, and Mary is weeping, and the angels are around her. And he painted this after his own son had died. So Wm Bouguereau was very sad when he painted this painting. And again, the emotion is spectacular, and it's very sad. Okay, now here is Mary, Queen of Angels by Wm Bouguereau again. And it's just spectacular. And again, the red like love, the blue like heaven of her cloak. And Catholicism gives a higher position to women than any other religion or culture I'm aware of. She's the Queen of Heaven. It doesn't get any better than that, okay? That's the highest thing you can be besides God, all right? So Catholicism loves the family, honors the mother, puts her above everything else. In Rome, when Christianity first began on earth, the husband could just toss aside the wife and get a new one. He didn't have to pay her alimony or anything, okay? Whereas in Christianity, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to stay together for life, and the woman is put on a pedestal, okay? So the women in Rome, they loved Christianity. They got treated so much better, so much more respected. And people in general are so much more respected. They're created in the image of God. And you can see it just conveys eloquence, serenity, beauty, goodness, innocence, truth, everything good. Okay, all the stars, the halo of stars around Mary, Queen of Heaven. Okay, it's spectacular. All right, so now I'm going to show you Meissonier. So Meissonier in his lifetime was considered the greatest French painter, but like I said, I think Bouguereau is better. So here's the portrait of a sergeant. So you got a sergeant in his military uniform, and you have a painter here, which could be Meissonier himself. And it's just spectacular. I mean, in terms of the precision of the detail, it's as lifelike as you could be. It almost looks like a perfect color photograph. But I actually think that's the problem with Meissonier. Despite his perfect replication of reality, you have to look twice and make sure it's not a photograph. The emotion's kind of no big deal. And in the end, things that are memorable are more emotional. So here he did a portrait of Leland Stanford. I don't know if Stanford had traveled to France or what. So Leland Stanford was the railroad tycoon who funded Stanford University. Okay, and it was a great university, and he was a very, very, very conservative guy, which is kind of funny because University Stanford now is way, way, way out on this hand, if you know what I'm saying, the LEFT. Okay, but nice portrait there. You really see pretty serious looking emotion. You know that's Leland Stanford. That's nobody else. Okay, now here is a painting of Meissonier of Napoleon on horseback, and it's a little bit. It's very realistic, it's very accurate, but it's not that exciting. I should have included the Jacques-Louis David painting from from a little afterwards, of his painting of Napoleon crossing the Alps from earlier in the 1800s. It's just a lot more dramatic than this. This is good, it's realistic, but you can't even tell if the army is, what they're up to. They don't look totally sad like they're retreating from Russia. They don't look totally happy like they just won a victory. They just sort of look like they're on the march. It's not that exciting. Okay, now a few last words of things I didn't quite get to in talking about this book was, and this is actually a pretty good painting. Rousseau wrote this book, the novel of Eloise, and it's about Eloise and Abelard. And Rousseau himself sired 5 children, and he abandoned all of them to an orphanage. That's what I'm trying to say. Rousseau, and this painting is sort of, here's the lady, here's her husband in the shadows, and then here's her lover there. And that's sort of a very French type of painting. I think that's a Fragonard called The Swing or something. But what I'm getting at, that's sort of a French type of painting, that they think adultery is funny. And Rousseau, besides writing about love in this novel, he wrote about Emile and about how to raise a child. He's the last guy in the world who should write a book about how to raise a child. He abandoned 5 children. They probably all died, okay? So, as you can guess, I think Rousseau is the scum of the earth, okay? And the fact that France made these guys famous, Rousseau and Voltaire and Diderot and Alembert, they're scumbags, okay? Voltaire was lucky enough to get an education at the Jesuits, and he spent the rest of his life bashing the Jesuits. And then he says how great they are, but he helped to destroy the Jesuits, okay? Okay, so here's Voltaire. And yeah, the guy was a genius. Yeah, he was clever. Yes, he was funny. But in the end, he was a very evil guy. Just because he doesn't want to believe in Christianity, he tries to destroy it for the whole country. And what did it lead to? It led to the French Rev, 1789 to 1794, the absolute destruction of France with 50,000 heads on the ground. Regular people have to have a religion. There's no way around that. And if they're going to have a nice religion like Christianity says, love thy neighbor, give each other the benefit of the doubt, he who is without sin may cast the first stone, that which you do to the least of my brethren you do unto me. That gets you to be as nice as the people are going to be. You want to go this enlightenment, reason, atheism, and you got 50,000 heads on the ground pretty fast, okay? So you can't run a country on atheism. The only thing you can run on atheism is slavery. Okay, now here's Alexis de Tocqueville. He went to the USA in about 1835, and he was amazed at how great the USA was. He wrote a book called Democracy in America, and he praised the freedom of America in many ways. He was proud of we thought the women were impressive because they were so religious, but he sensed that democracy makes people stupid because it doesn't challenge men's brains, and he felt that eventually it was going to lead to stupefaction of the men in USA. They were going to become stupider and stupider, and the country would lose its freedom. And gee, that seems like a pretty accurate prediction. Okay, I think that's all I got for today. Oh, I got one more guy I want to show you. Here's Chateaubriand. Chateaubriand sort of got a little bit caught up in the French Rev. It was on the side of the royalists, the good guys in the French Rev, but he still sort of drifted into atheism. And then his mother sent him a letter, and his sister told him about it. Her dying wish when his mother was dying, he had to flee the country for a while, was that he would return to Christianity. And so he returned to Christianity, and he started studying it in some great detail. And then he wrote this book. I'm going to show you this book. It's kind of a monster. This book is called The Genius of Christianity. Look how thick it is. I read this book. I actually skipped parts of it because it's too darn long. It's like 700 pages of fine print. And the guy was a genius, Chateaubriand. He considered himself the smartest man in France. Okay. He also considered himself the greatest lover in France. And he had a giant ego. He considered himself the best educated man in France. But he basically said, look, everything good in France comes from Christianity. And once we turned our backs on Christianity, what do we have? We end up bumping each other off with 50,000 heads on the ground. What good is that? We've destroyed our churches. We've destroyed our monasteries. We need to bring it all back. And he was very happy that Napoleon reinstated Catholicism as the national religion of France. So anyways, I was impressed by Chateaubriand. I'm going to do a book review of this in the future. I read this thing on a treadmill. I just had to finish French Mind first. So we'll get to some of this stuff. But it was a pretty impressive book, pretty impressive guy, and it led to a resurgence of Christianity in France. Because back in those days, people read books. There wasn't any competition for books. There was no radio, no TV, no internet, none of that stuff. So his book was a big blockbuster bestseller, and people were like, yeah, you know what, Chateaubriand is right. Okay, that's it for today. Hope you found that helpful.